Have you ever stopped to think about where our most basic ideas come from? Ideas about freedom, identity, or even how a government should work. Well, it turns out that a 17th century physician and philosopher is behind a lot of it. His name was John Locke, and his ideas are so deeply embedded in our world that you use them every day without even realizing it. From the way you think about yourself to the government you live under, his fingerprints are absolutely everywhere.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. Thomas Jefferson, yeah, that Thomas Jefferson, put Locke in his top 3 thinkers of all time. That's some serious praise, right? It tells you straight up that we are dealing with a mind whose influence is almost impossible to overstate.
So who was this guy? How did a philosopher from the 1600s end up writing the operating system for so much of the modern world? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into. See, Locke's ideas weren't just for dusty old books. They were revolutionary. He was born in England way back in 1632, and his work became a cornerstone of the Enlightenment. It influenced thinkers all across Europe, and maybe most famously, it provided the intellectual ammunition for the American Revolution. And when I say direct, I mean incredibly direct. This isn't some vague, oh, he kind of influenced them sort of thing. No, you can find phrases from Locke's writings that are practically copied and pasted right into the Declaration of Independence. His ideas about individual rights weren't just theory. They became the literal foundation for a brand new nation. But before Locke took on governments, he started with something even more fundamental. Us. How do we think? Where do our ideas come from? At the time, the popular belief was that we were born with certain ideas already hardwired into our brains. Locke, well, he had a radically different take. He called it Tabula Rasa, which is Latin for blank slate. His argument was simple but profound. When we're born, our minds are completely empty. No pre-existing concepts, no built-in knowledge. Everything we know, everything that makes us who we are, comes from our experiences. So, you've got this big philosophical battle. On one side, you have the old view. Knowledge is innate, you're born with it. On the other, you have Locke's empiricism, this idea that all knowledge is built up piece by piece from what we see, hear, and touch. It's a huge shift, right? It's like going from being born with all your software pre-installed to building it from scratch, one experience at a time. And Locke put it perfectly himself. If our minds really are blank slates, then what gets written on them is what truly matters. This puts a massive emphasis on education and experience. It suggests we aren't destined to be one thing or another. We are shaped by the world around us. And you can actually see this blank slate philosophy in how Locke himself worked. The guy was a meticulous note-taker. He saw knowledge as something you had to carefully collect, organize, and index. Looking at his notebooks, you get a real sense of a man who practiced what he preached, building his own understanding of the world, one observation at a time. Okay, so once he established that, he applied the exact same methodical, build-it-from-the-ground-up logic to an even bigger subject, society itself. Now, at the time, the dominant idea was the divine right of kings, the belief that rulers got their authority straight from God. And, once again, Locke proposed something completely revolutionary. His book, Two Treatises of Government, was basically a direct assault on absolute monarchy. Instead of power coming from above, from God, Locke argued that any legitimate political power has to come from below, from the consent of the people. This was a world-changing bombshell of an idea. So how's that supposed to work? He breaks it down into something called the social contract. Step 1, imagine a state of nature. Everyone's free, but there are no rules, which can get messy and lead to conflict. Step 2, to solve that chaos, people willingly make a deal, a contract. They agree to give up a tiny bit of their freedom to create a government. And that government has one job. And that job is to protect their most fundamental rights. And what are those rights? Well, Locke defined them as life, health, liberty, and possessions. He said these aren't gifts from a king, they're natural rights you have just by being human. Sound familiar? It totally should. This is the direct philosophical ancestor of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And here is the most radical part of it all. For Locke, a government has only one legitimate purpose: to protect these natural rights. If a government breaks that contract, if it starts to violate those rights instead of protecting them, the people don't just have a right to change it. Locke argued they have an obligation to overthrow it.
But, and this is a huge but, Locke's story isn't that simple.
For all of his powerful, beautiful arguments for liberty and the rights of every individual, there is a deep, troubling contradiction right at the heart of his life and his work. Here's the thing. While he was writing about freedom for all, Locke was also a financial investor in the Royal Africa Company, one of the biggest slave trading companies in the world. And it gets even more direct. He helped write the Constitution for the American colony of Carolina, a document that explicitly gave slave owners absolute power and authority over the people they enslaved. So how do we even begin to square that? The man who inspired the Declaration of Independence also profited from and legally enabled slavery. This shocking hypocrisy is a central part of his legacy, and it actually created a pattern of contradiction that would be repeated by the very American founders who looked up to him so much. And that brings us to today. We are living in a world that John Locke profoundly shaped, for better and for worse. His ideas are so fundamental to how we think about ourselves and our governments that we really can't escape his influence.
Just think about it. The idea that you are a unique individual defined by your experiences, that's Locke. The core principle that a government is only legitimate if its people agree to it, that's Locke. The very concept of universal human rights, religious tolerance, separation of church and state, these are all pillars of his legacy that are still incredibly vital today.
So we're left with this massive, uncomfortable question. We've seen that the minds that conceived of modern liberty was also deeply entangled in its complete opposite. As we live inside the political and philosophical houses that Locke helped design, we have to ask ourselves, what does his profound contradiction say about the very foundations he laid for us all?